Hey, I'm Minato. Apple is letting Google's Gemini power Siri. On the surface, it looks like a tech partnership, but the way I see it, this is Apple taking a step back on the AI front. Not because Google is perfect, because Apple needs to fix the experience first. Today, I'm not going to recap the news. I'm just going to answer three questions. Why did Apple end up here? What did Google actually get? And what does this mean for the AI landscape? Before we start, one note. I'll try to separate public information, media reports, and my own interpretation so you can judge what's fact and what's my take. First question, why did Apple end up here? Here's my conclusion up front. Siri's problem isn't just that the model isn't strong enough, it's that the architecture is too old and the product cadence couldn't keep up. Siri launched in 2011. Its underlying logic is command-based. You say the right keyword, it executes an action. But what users expect today is different. Understanding context, asking follow-ups, having conversations that feel human. The problem is, you can't just bolt large language model capabilities onto a 15-year-old framework. It's not about upgrading the model. It's about state management, tool calling, error handling, privacy boundaries. All of that needs to be rebuilt. On the performance gap, media reports have cited internal assessments, things like accuracy and response speed lagging behind competitors by a significant margin. I'm not treating these as precise numbers, but the signal is clear. The gap was big enough to affect everyday experience. Not just slightly behind, there's also a key timeline issue. According to reports, Apple's leadership didn't really accelerate internal efforts until after ChatGPT blew up. That means, while the rest of the industry was shipping new models every few months, Apple was still absorbing the cost of turning the ship, organizationally and architecturally. So the way I read this Gemini deal is, use external capabilities to stabilize the experience, buy time to build a new architecture internally. It's a pragmatic choice, not pretty but common. One sentence to remember from this section, Apple doesn't lack ambition right now. It lacks time. Second question, what did Google actually get? On the surface, it's a technology licensing deal. Media estimates put it around $1 billion a year, but that's not the point. The real value is two things, the entry point and default mindshare. On mobile, what's really valuable isn't some AI you remember to use occasionally. It's the system-level
Add oat
default.
milk to the grocery
You press a
list.
button,
It's
say a
added.
phrase, don't even think about which assistant to use, and it's just there. If Gemini becomes part of the default experience chain on iOS, Google isn't getting a licensing fee. It's getting a massive distribution position. Add to that the Android side, where Google already controls most of the entry points and is deeply integrated with major OEMs like Samsung. There's another layer. Google pays Apple roughly $20 billion a year to remain the default search engine. That's from court filings. As search and assistants start to merge, default search isn't just search anymore. It's becoming the default answer engine. So the deal structure you're looking at is this. Google pays substantial ongoing costs in exchange for holding the default entry point on the most important mobile platforms, long term. One sentence to remember, the money is the surface. The entry point is the core. Third question, what does this mean for the AI landscape? The most direct impact is about who gets closer to the user. A lot of people think AI competition is about who has the stronger model. But when the gap between models narrows on everyday tasks, what starts to matter more is who becomes the default, who gets into the system-level flow, who captures user habits. Different models lead on different benchmarks. The gaps are shrinking. When users can't feel a huge difference, distribution becomes more important. Under this framework, if the default iOS experience relies more on Gemini and ChatGPT only shows up when users actively choose it for complex queries, then OpenAI becomes more like an optional add-on on mobile, not the default entry point. That's not about model strength. It's about position in the distribution chain. Take it one step further, and you get to the data flywheel issue. The bigger the entry point, the more usage, the more feedback, the faster you iterate. If Google gets higher frequency touchpoints through both Android and iOS partnerships, it has an advantage in product refinement and habit formation. So what's Apple's counter move? Probably the same playbook as always. Partner to bridge the gap, then build your own replacement. Reports say Apple is working on a new architecture for Siri. But the challenge is, an AI assistant isn't like swapping out a chip or replacing maps. It involves models, toolchains, system permissions, privacy policies, cross-app experience consistency, everything has to connect. So the more realistic read is, short term, Apple needs outside help to hold the experience together. Mid-term, it tries to catch up with its own stack. Long term, whether it can fully break away from external models depends on whether it can build a true system-level AI loop. Finally, what should you be watching? 3 signals. First, reception of the new Siri. If regular users clearly feel it's smarter, more natural, more capable, that means this partnership worked, at least on the product level. Second, Apple's own AI progress. Watch whether it starts emphasizing its own model capabilities, not just talking about experience. Third, regulatory wildcards. Default entry points plus massive commercial contracts tend to attract antitrust attention. That could be an external force that reshapes the landscape. Let me wrap it up in 4 sentences. Apple choosing Gemini is a pragmatic, reality-driven decision. The core goal is to buy time. What Google really got isn't the licensing fee, it's the default mobile entry point and user habits. When models converge on everyday tasks, distribution and entry points matter more. Apple will try to build its own replacement eventually, but AI's system-level integration makes that path harder and slower than before. All right, that's it for today. I'm Minato. Thanks for listening.